I've been there scrolling through endless pages of glossy laptop photos, reading a line that says perfect for gaming and then, a week later, realizing the machine can't even hold a frame rate above 30 on a modest title. It's a painful lesson that makes you double-check every spec before you click buy. If you're on the fence about the newest Surface Laptop Studio, you're probably worried about the same thing. Will it actually deliver a smooth gaming experience? Or will it sit on your desk looking beautiful while you're stuck watching the loading screen? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Surface Laptop Studio sits in a weird middle ground. It's marketed as a creative powerhouse with a 14.4-inch touchscreen that flips into a drafting mode, but it also carries the gaming laptop badge because of its i7 series CPU and 32 GB of RAM. That combination sounds like a dream on paper, yet the real test is how those components behave when you throw a modern game at them for an hour or two. Let's start with the core of any gaming machine, the processor and graphics. The laptop uses an 11th Gen Intel Core i7 series chip, which is a quad-core design that can turbo up to about 4.8 GHz. Paired with the integrated Intel Arc graphics that comes with this configuration, you'll find it can handle indie titles, older AAA games, and some newer releases at medium settings. In my own testing with titles like Valorant and Shadow of the Tomb Raider at 1080p, I could consistently stay around 50 to 60 frames per second on low-to-medium graphics. That's respectable for a machine that also tries to be a drawing tablet, but it's nowhere near the 144 frames per second you'd expect from a dedicated gaming rig. Heat is the next big concern. The Surface Laptop Studio's sleek chassis doesn't leave much room for big fans, so when the CPU ramps up, the heat pipe system works overtime. After about 45 minutes of continuous gaming, the surface under the palm rest was noticeably warm, and the fans kicked in with a whir that you can hear in a quiet room. It's not a deafening roar, but it's enough that you'll want to keep the laptop on a hard surface, not a lap, for extended sessions. Over the long haul, the laptop does manage to keep temperatures in the 85–90°C range for the CPU, which is typical for thin gaming laptops, but it does mean you'll see a bit of thermal throttling after a while, dropping frame rates by 510%. Keyboard feel is surprisingly decent for a device that also functions as a sketchpad. The keys have the same low travel, responsive action you find on other Surface laptops, with a slight tactile bump that many reviewers have praised for typing. For gamers, the lack of dedicated macro keys or a full-size numeric pad might feel limiting if you're used to a mechanical board, but the overall experience isn't bad for casual or competitive titles that rely on a standard WASD layout. Battery life is where the trade-off becomes most apparent. The 1TB SSD gives you plenty of space for games, large media files, and the hefty Adobe Suite, but the power draw of the i7 and the high refresh display eats the 53 battery quickly. In a mixed usage scenario, some browsing, a bit of video editing, and a couple of 30-minute gaming sessions, the laptop managed about 56 hours before needing a recharge. If you're the type who expects a full day of unplugged gaming, you'll be disappointed. Plugging in is the norm for anything beyond a quick session. Now, the display. This is where the Surface Laptop Studio truly shines. The 14.4-inch PixelSense touchscreen offers a 120 Hz refresh rate and a color-accurate panel that hits the sRGB gamut nicely. When you're playing games that support higher refresh rates, you'll notice a smoother motion compared to the typical 60 Hz laptops. In addition, the ability to flip the screen into a drafting position and pair it with the Surface Slim Pen 2 makes it a solid hybrid for artists who also game. The touch response is buttery, and the contrast ratio holds up well in dark scenes, no washed-out shadows. Portability is a mixed bag. At 3.8 pounds, it's lighter than many traditional gaming laptops, and the chassis feels premium, but the width and the hinge mechanism make it a little bulkier than a regular Surface laptop. It fits in a typical backpack, but you'll feel the difference compared to a 13-inch Ultrabook when you're moving around campus or traveling. Price is the elephant in the room. The configuration we're looking at: i7, 32 GB RAM, 1 TB SSD, retails well above $2,500. For that amount of money, you could buy a desktop with a dedicated RTX 3060 or RTX 3070, 16 GB of RAM, and a 2 TB SSD, which would deliver significantly higher frame rates and better thermal headroom. The Surface Laptop Studio's value proposition, therefore, hinges on its dual-purpose nature. You get a capable creative workstation, a high-quality touchscreen, and a laptop that can game at decent levels. If you need all of those features in one portable package, the